Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsey Biel. I'm an occupational therapist based in New York, as you probably know, and I'm the co-author of Raising a Sensory Smart Child with Nancy Peske. And we are so thrilled to tell you that we have a new edition, a brand new edition, yay! Yay! Of our book. We first wrote it in 2005. How is that possible? And then we revised it in 2009, and here it is in 2018 with an all new, updated, revised edition with lots of new features that you are going to love.
Yes, and I know one of the things that people love about our book is that it's got tons and tons of resources for toys and equipment, for more information about conditions that kids with sensory issues can have, all sorts of resources, and we've updated every single one of them and added some more.
One of the things that I'm really thrilled about is we rewrote the chapter on autism to reflect the new understanding of what's going on with kids and teens and adults with autism and sensory issues. We've always known that they have, the vast majority have sensory processing issues, but now we're really gotten so clear on what those issues are all about and the best ways to emotionally and academically and physically support them. So that's super exciting. And one of the key things to keep in mind regarding those kids and teens and adults is presuming competence, even if their sensory issues are resulting in behaviors that are less than optimal, that they are competent and doing their absolute best. And it's up to parents and teachers and therapists to help deal with those sensory issues so that they can be more available to us. So that's one of the chapters that has been revised and updated. And Nancy's going to tell you about the absolute new chapter that we're so thrilled about.
Right. When we looked at the 2009 edition, we could not believe how much has changed since 2009, which was the beginning of social media, for example. And I remember in 2005, when our book first came out, a website was a new thing. It was very exciting that we were going to have a website on the internet. So, so now here we are in 2018, and technology is so much a part of our lives. So we have a whole new chapter on technology and kids with sensory issues. What we found is there's a lot of information out there about how all technology and screen time is terrible for all kids at all times. And there are differences with kids with sensory issues, and also they're going to have to use technology. They're going into a technology world, and very often at school, they're not only expected to use technology for research and for testing, but they may need to use technology to better learn, to be able to access information in a form where it's easier for them to digest.
So, right. And for some of them, that is their primary means of communication. Let's not forget that. So it's very important. And I'm excited because in 2005, we were using Boardmaker to create means for kids to communicate who were non-speaking. And now it's such a commonly built-in feature in much of the technology our kids are using.
Yes, and there's so much that's available to all kids, whether it's Google Chrome extensions for text-to-speech, or it's online videos where they can run the subtitles as well as hearing the lecture. So it's very exciting, all that's available for our kids. But of course, like all kids, they can get too attracted to the ease of technology. So we wrote about that, and we interviewed some parents and looked at some of the research. So I think people are really going to find this new chapter very helpful.
And one of the things that I love about the chapter from an occupational therapist standpoint is how to use it in a way not only that's emotionally safe for kids, emotionally and developmentally, but also physically safe. Because a lot of our kids are hunched over their iPads and their phones and doing all these things to their bodies and their eyes that we don't even know what's down the pike. As an OT, I can take a pretty good guess. The rounded shoulders and the neck, and I call it Pez head, the Pez dispenser where the Pez comes out. It's like all this stuff does something to your body. So we explain the best ways to set kids up physically to use technology, as well as the need to take frequent breaks from every standpoint. But for me, as an OT, particularly for the visual system, so that the eyes can refocus and reset, and the muscles getting up and moving and not just sitting frozen in front of a computer the way we all do at this point, unless we become very disciplined to do so. And there are lots of great games and apps that are out there that do encourage that movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that balance that's so important, because our bodies were designed to be in nature. And in nature, you're not looking 20 inches away all the time, right? Or, 10 inches away. You're also looking into the distance, and then you're looking close up. Same with sound. We're supposed to hear sounds all around us in 3D, and it helps us orient ourselves. So when the sound is coming from one direction all of the time, it's problematic. So we talk about how to get your kids outdoors, socializing face to face, and getting some balance with that screen time.
That's right. That's right. So I think parents are really going to love that, and teachers are going to love it, and pediatricians are going to love it too. Super pleased about that. Another thing I'm very pleased to have in the new edition is all of the science. When you and I, Nancy, were first talking, I worked with Nancy's wonderful son through early intervention. We were kind of creating this from scratch. I mean, OTs had the information, much of the information, let me put it that way. And we decided we needed to put it all together so that parents could have this information at their fingertips. And there weren't a whole lot of scientific studies done at that point. And I think because there weren't quite as many as there needed to be, that's part of why it didn't make it into the diagnostic manual of the American, the APA, which is the big diagnostic clinical manual that's used for insurance coding, for psychologists, for psychiatrists, and so on. So since then, there have been a lot of studies done that actually point to neuroanatomical differences in people who have sensory processing differences. And there's that. There have been studies done that show certain people with sensory issues can detect movement visually twice as quickly as neurotypically developing kids. So we have the science in the book as the new edition as well. And that's important when you're trying to advocate for your child and say, it's not me being, a nervous parent, right? A lot of parents are getting like, oh, you're getting anxious. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, I'm not just a nervous parent. There's something going on with my child that needs to be taken seriously. So that we equip the reader with those scientific studies, not in a way that's going to make your eyes glaze over and your brain shut down. It's little tidbits of information that you can go into a school equipped with when you want to advocate for your child at school and say, yeah, it's not me indulging in my child, spoiling my child. These are real bona fide differences that need to be addressed.
Yes, and we interviewed parents for the book all all along, starting in 2005. And one thing I have always learned by checking in with parents and talking with them about their experiences is that in helping our kids, we have to ask them questions and listen to the answers. And sometimes those answers are going to seem so out there. But if we can stay present and listen to them, then we can draw them into collaborating on what works for them and expand upon that. So often the accommodation that's going to make a really big difference is very small, but it's that attitude that it's legitimate, right? That your child really does have to sit in that front row, and if the light is coming in from the back and hitting, the smart board and there's glare, he really can't read the smart board. And I think it starts with parents really respecting that their kids are processing information, they're processing sensory information differently. And then you empower your child to believe that that's okay. And they can advocate for themselves at school. And if they meet up with resistance, you will be there for them, helping them to work with their teachers and educate them on what they need to be able to succeed.
That's right. And so we give the readers a lot of tools for how to do that, even some language that parents can use, because this doesn't come naturally to a lot of us. It's like, oh, the teacher is the principal. It's like, oh, they're the authority figures, and what do I know? They're the educators. But, so it helps to have some tools that you can walk in with and use. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Also, with the holidays coming up, we have a lot of tips for all the holidays that we're about to deal with.
Right. Because we want our kids to be a part of everyday life in the community and in our families, and they can really, really struggle. So knowing the strategies and the accommodations, whether it's, simple pieces of equipment like noise cancellation headphones that can help them, or sensory breaks for movement and refocusing. We talk a lot about self-regulation in the new book, self-regulation of mood, focus, and activity level, which is really hard for kids with sensory issues. And we know so much more about this now than we did years ago, that our nervous systems really do need to be trained to be able to regulate those things.
Right, especially with so much information, here we are at technology again, bombarding us all the time. Adults are also struggling with this. So, sometimes a self-regulating tool can be learning how to breathe in a conscious, mindful way, learning to take breaks, using something as simple as a hand tool, and I'm not calling it a toy, it is a tool. And using a squeeze ball not only strengthens the muscles of the hands and the wrist, but can also be very self-regulating.
Yes, and it's so simple and so cheap and yet so effective. And that's always been a part of our book, is the larger strategies, talking about the therapies that are available. But sometimes just a small thing like a squeeze ball can make a big difference.
Right. And you can get them now at any party supply store or Target or Walmart. They're all over the place now because everyone loves them.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of mindfulness, my son was fortunate to be in a school system that started adding mindfulness training into the curriculum for the elementary schools. And I had him take a class in mindfulness meditation, and I did have to bribe him. He got a $65 Lego set out of it.
Nice.
But he came out of it knowing this technique and appreciating what it did for him. So I know that even today, when he gets an injury, let's say he's playing a ball game, and he gets the wind knocked out of him, he knows that he can use that tool to recalibrate himself and not go into a state of anxiety or panic. And he uses it to help him fall asleep if he's stressed out. So I'm a big believer in using these self-regulation techniques to help your kid to have more control over their experiences.
Right. And parents can use these too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kids will get you. They know all of our touch points and things that, they know all of our buttons. So it's very helpful to have those mindfulness tools that we do share in the book, so that you can model calm at all times.
Yes, and be the calm that you want to see in your child.
Right.
Right. So don't be surprised that your child suggests that maybe you could meditate. Because we're all stressed out these days. And I think that we need to be the calm that we want to see in our children.
My understanding is now our book can be listened to.
Yes.
As text to speech. That's a new development, right?
Yeah, since the new edition, of course, audiobooks are one of the hottest things in book publishing. And thankfully, even if there isn't a recording of the authors reading the book, you can use tools on mobile devices and on desktop computers to get that text to turn into speech so that you can have that audio version of the book. And our book has been available as an ebook for several years now too. And so you can access the physical book, get the physical book, but you might want to have that ebook too in order to listen to it, in order to look up things by keywords. So it's incredibly helpful to have so many different versions for so many different people.
That's true. That's true. And speaking of versions, I want to remind parents and therapists and teachers who are with us today to make sure you're getting the new edition, the older editions. The first one, which is still floating around the internet, it's amazing, has a purple band on the top. And the second edition has a blue band. The current edition, which is the one you really do want to get at this point because it has the most up-to-date information, has no band. And it's got this kind of orangey red lettering, which is, I think, really pretty. I'm so happy with the way it turned out.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Proud of that. It's fun. I'm thrilled that here we are all these years later, and the book is better than ever and more popular than ever. Couldn't be proud. Yeah.
Yeah, and we started writing the first book when my son was around 3 years old, and he is now going into his sophomore year of college. It's amazing how time has flown, and I thank him for setting up this Skype call. He can figure out my technology for me. And for those of you reading the book and wondering, whatever happened, because he had so many struggles, he's doing great. He's doing really well in college. He's got a group of friends that he really enjoys socializing with. He does service in the community, going to his old high school and helping students who have learning differences, who have anxiety and stress, to find the tools that they need and to believe that it does get better and you have the power to make things better. And he wants to go into a helping profession so that he can help teenagers to really believe in themselves. And I could not be more proud of him that this experience, as difficult as it was to have a sensory processing disorder and to really struggle at school, has made him want to help others and make it easier for them.
I am so thrilled to see how he's developed into such a wonderful, sensitive, kind, compassionate young adult from this young child that I would come bounding up to me to meet me when I was his OT, coming to see him for our OT sessions. And, you know, I'd have to sort of like get ready. He's like, here comes a big hug. And he's just this elegant, charming young man. And you and your husband just did such an amazing job following through. And really kudos to you and especially to him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, again, thanks to him for setting up this Skype recording for us. And Lindsey and I, in the coming weeks and months, will continue, as we always have, to help people get more information, share some of the things in the book. So you can follow us on Facebook. We're probably the most active there of all the social media. We're also at Sensory Smarts on Twitter and at Sensory Smart Mom on Twitter. What else are we? I have a channel on YouTube, so I sometimes share things there, and I'll share this video there. And then Lindsey has a website where you can learn about sensory issues, but also where she will be appearing next, doing workshops and lectures.
That's right. That's sensorysmarts.com. And
right.
There's a lot of information. I have a lot of webcasts that I've done. A clip from Fox Health News that features a child who you read about in Raising a Sensory Smart Child, who's now a teenager. And actually, she is also in her second year of college. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good information on the Sensory Smarts website, as well as on Nancy's amazing parenting website. That's sensorysmartparent.com.
Right. And at sensorysmartparent.com, I have a lot of information, and I also do blog pieces, which will feed to my Amazon Central page. But you can also sign up for the Sensory Smart News. I don't do newsletters that often. I do them whenever I do a blog. And I will update you on where Lindsey and I are doing appearances and share whatever I can in terms of valuable information and resources, because we're always keen to find more resources to help these amazing kids and the people who are helping them, the occupational therapists, the teachers, and of course parents and grandparents.
That's right. That's right. So thank you for joining us. This was fun. It was nice to get to catch up with you, Nancy.
Yes, it was fun to talk through what's going on with us and the book. And again, we hope that everybody will join us on social media and check out our websites, subscribe to Sensory Smart News, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.